Good afternoon. My name is Daniel Blake, and I'm a grad student in the Rural Advocacy Program at Fort Hays State University. During this oral explanation, I will speak on several different subsectors to the topic of information literacy. This conversation should help facilitate and communicate what information literacy is, what skills are involved, and why it is essential to learn those skills. So according to Scott Lanning in the book entitled Concise Guide to Information Literacy, information can simply be defined as data which has been recorded, classified, organized, related, or interpreted with a framework so that meaning emerges. Essentially, this means that as individuals we must begin to relate certain items in terms of context for it to become information. In order to be an informed individual, the transition to literacy must occur. By definition, literacy is having knowledge or skill in a specific field. Information literacy relates to finding key information, evaluating that information, and then using it. In relation to higher education, there are competencies for information literacy. These standard measures success of learners regarding the control over learning. An information literate individual is able to determine the extent of information needed, access the information effectively and efficiently, evaluate the information and its sources critically, incorporate selected information into one's knowledge base, use information effectively to accomplish a specific purpose, and understand the economic, legal, and social issues surrounding the use of information, and access and use information ethically and legally. I think as we go along, the most important thing to remember out of those subcomponents, out of those core measures, especially for those in the higher education field, is the use of those legally and ethically. I think oftentimes we forget that just because the information is out there and just because it's on the internet doesn't mean that we can legally or ethically use that information. And that's something that as learners, and something that we are trying to transcribe to those learners as somebody who's in the collegiate atmosphere every single day. That's something that I try to strive and let my students know, or students that are here know, that just because that information is available doesn't necessarily mean that we can access that, or that we can use it efficiently and effectively, or ethically and legally. Some basic skills for an informationally literate individual can include the ability to identify resources, distinguish between those resources used, using keywords to search for resources, and citing sources correctly. I have a fault of not using keywords effectively. That's something that I have learned through this class, and then that's something I'll talk about a little bit later. But this is something that we can, again, transcribe down to our students who are becoming learners. Not necessarily have they always learned this information. I think in a higher ed field that is very, very important to do. Information literacy is important and essential to learn because it is ingrained in our every day-to-day functions. In fact, UNESCO, which is the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, agreed that within an information society comes a more connected community and worldwide feel. Recently, as recent as last semester, I had the opportunity to do pretty much a full semester research on the digital divide. And the digital divide, for those who don't know what the digital divide is, essentially that means that there are parts of this world and parts of this country even that have little to no access to internet services. And working in the higher ed field, I started noticing this right away, that we had students coming from other countries that had no idea how to look up information because they'd never been exposed to the internet. And so that is something that UNESCO said as well, that having this connection, being more integrated and more connected as a community, will help a worldwide feel as well. And being an information literate person can help individuals make decisions that are informed and ethically driven. So I think it's very, very important to mesh those in and to really bind those together. Essentially, information literacy produces productive members of society. Again, if we know how to use the information, if we can take that information, transcribe it into actually literacy, we become more productive. We understand where we are going with certain aspects and certain things in life. The lack of information literacy on our current generation is concerning. This is something I've talked about several times in the past. Those who are seeking education are now more at a risk in relation to understanding what is offered in libraries and how to use it. So as a librarian, I've worked as a librarian for the last 3 years, and this has given me substantial proof time and time again that our educational system is simply failing students. And what I mean by that is that we place computers in front of them, but really teach them little about how to access quality information. So, for example, I am also a sociology instructor here at Colby Community College. And so during an introduction to sociology course that I was teaching last fall, I asked the students to conduct a research topic and a research paper regarding specific cultural trends. And as I was giving the instructions out, I told them to locate a minimum of 3 resources. They first must have one scholarly journal article, one tangible book in print in their library, and then they could choose the last type of resource that they use. When I asked if there was any questions, no one answered, and so I sent them on their way. This assignment comes back to the next week, and I say I was shocked, but not really, by the amount of students using Wikipedia as their scholarly sources. So this opened the door as a professional and as one who's trying to help that information literacy gap kind of decrease, and with UNESCO's idea of a worldwide feel, I started talking to them about identifying resources, corrected citation formatting, evaluation of resources, and the use of free library databases that are offered by the institution. I explained to them that Colby Community College has several sources available. I showed them where to access those. And then I also showed them access to the state library, which is an excellent resource, has several different resources available for them to use. And then I also started talking to them a little bit about the government documents portion of things, so FDSIS, and the use of government documents. There was also some struggle into understanding what a tangible source is. A lot of them didn't know what tangible meaning hold in your hand, which I found was kind of astonishing. So I asked them, I said, how many of you accessed your library in high school? And about a third of the class actually only ever accessed their library, which is, again, very, very concerning. So my process throughout this course has been to try to remain one module ahead. This gives me time, and if I need more information regarding specific information, I can learn that with that extra time I have. The information that I found the most interesting would be in relation to the Boolean search statements. I can't believe I hadn't used that system before. I have a master's degree already. I have a bachelor's degree, and I have 3 associate's degrees. And never once did I actually use that as a keyword. I mean, we use it in search terms that you use it in certain databases, but you don't actually go through the process of learning how the Boolean search statements are set up. And I was absolutely surprised how well it works, and so I've been using it for another class I've taken this semester. It helps simply to define the searches and make them more accurate, so that really helps a lot. One of the most useful pieces of information was the library guides. I had attended Fort Hays State for nearly 6 years, consistently. And this is the first time I had heard about those guides. So that is something that I will be using in the future and that I can help direct students to if they need a little bit more individualized help that way. So using both of those newly found skills definitely has increased my ability as a researcher, and they will be resources I use and utilize in both my personal and professional life. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact. Thank you.